very much. So we are here today to be fearless. And to do that, we begin by understanding fear. And fear, like so many experiences in life, it comes in circles. And it's only through looping through those circles that we can step out of fear and into fearless. And we can begin understanding fear where there's an absence of fear. And for most of us, our childhood is an absence of true fear. And hopefully where that's not the case, there were periods of time when another significant person or a place created that sense of safety for you, that home base. Now, I was lucky enough to grow up in a farm in Gippsland, which is in southern Australia, in a regional area, and I grew up on an apple orchard. So my childhood is memories of vast open spaces, the closeness of family, and this might sound a little bit sentimental now, but the support of my animal friends, especially my horse Gypsy. Even now as an adult, when I hug my horse and I breathe in that horsey smell, it takes me way back to that sense of safety that Gypsy's horsey smell gave me when I was 11. So, where are you from? What's your home base? Where's your safe space? And as we grow, we develop as adults, invariably we step out of one circle, a circle with an absence of fear, and into circles with experiences of fear. Now, in your life, there have been times when you felt fear, when you were so afraid, so paralyzed by fear that you couldn't think or move. So just take yourself briefly and safely back to that moment now. And in that moment, your heart is racing, your mind is in turmoil. You can't think, can't function at all. And come back now into this room and know that you have felt that fear and you've moved through it. So this was my life moment of fear. It's 1993. I'm in Southeast Asia on the Thailand-Myanmar border. And I'm in the jungle. And while the day's been warm, because it's the start of the warm season, start of the winter season, the day's been warm, but the temperature's dropping rapidly. It's that lost time at the end of the day, known as the gloaming, early twilight, that time between day and night, light and dark, the seen and the unseen. And this was my moment of fear that led me to fearless. So I just arrived in Thalathor refugee camp, a jungle refugee camp on the edge of a war zone. At the time, I was 27 years old, so young, fearless, ready to take on the world. I was here to teach English, and I could see the school buildings. Beyond the school buildings, I could see the thick bamboo of the jungle. I could smell the smoke of the charcoal cooking fires, but the only thing I can hear is the pounding of blood in my head, because everything around me is so unfamiliar. It feels so frightening. And I'm asking myself, why am I here? How did I get here? How do I stay safe? I don't understand the language. I don't get the culture. And I have no idea about the politics. Paralyzed by fear that I lost track of the time. And to this day, I don't know how long I sat there. Was it minutes, hours? Like, it felt like an eternity. But what happened next? Well, that stayed with me forever, because I was about to receive a powerful leadership lesson, and from a most unlikely source. I learned in that moment that real human connection, it goes a long way towards helping us feel safe enough to find the courage to do what's necessary. And the interesting thing, this leader who taught me this lesson, she wasn't how you'd expect a leader to show up. She's small, mischievous, cute as a button, 4 years old. Norme poor. From the door, she sees that I'm distressed and she steps forward and she smiles and she takes my hand. And immediately I feel less alone and my mind starts to clear, my body thaws, and she leads me to a house nearby. And as we approach, I realize I can hear voices. I can see smiling faces. And what I can smell now is rice cooking. And in that moment, I still felt afraid, but in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. So how is it possible that Norme Poor, this little girl, was able to see my fear and lead me to what would become my new home, my new community? She didn't know it at the time, but she had the makings of a fearless leader. So how about you? How about your place of dark fear? And I think Kathy might have just been asking you to put that in the chat. How did you get out of that place of fear? And I'm guessing it wasn't some clever designated leader. It was someone that you could truly connect with in the way that I connected with Norme Poor. Now, I met Norme Poor, as I said, in 1993, in a region still crippled by civil war. This is a protest in 2023. There are 30 years between these two events. And what that tells me is that our world needs fearless leaders now more than ever. So what's the first step to becoming a fearless leader? Norme Poor knew. Connection. That little girl in the jungle, she couldn't understand my language, but she knew what I was saying. It was help. I was a long way from home and I was desperate to feel a sense of belonging, a connection. And that's what fearless leaders do. They understand that our fears are driven by isolation, uncertainty, disconnection. And they counter that with connection. Now, there's something that still surprises me, even now, that for the 2.5 years I lived in the camp, I didn't once feel that sense of deep, overwhelming fear that I felt on the first night, despite the threats. So why was that? I was still a long way from home. I was still in the jungle. And I believe that my courage stemmed from the generosity of that 4-year-old girl who was so willing to connect with me. Because connection is the foundation of fearless leadership. And leadership can emerge from the smallest of gestures, because leadership is an action. It's not a title. So when I think about that kind of connection, you don't see it very often. And I learned this slowly and probably imperfectly, that connection takes courage. It takes courage to be truly seen. It takes courage to reach forward to people when you don't know how that's going to be received. It takes courage to be real. And when we see that kind of courage in a leader, now it stays with us. It shifts something. And for me, an example of this type of leadership, a recent example, is this woman, Jacinda Ardern, former Prime Minister of New Zealand, known for her warmth and her humanity. Now, there are questions about her results, but there are no questions at all about her ability to connect. There's this great YouTube clip where she's talking with Ed Sheeran, the musician. And Ed Sheeran's planning a concert trip to New Zealand, and she videos absolutely deadpan saying he cannot migrate to live in New Zealand unless he understands what pineapple lumps are. That's what I love. We've got a prime minister of a country, and yet she's joking with a pop star about sweets. She's real. She's a human before she's a politician, a human before a leader. Now, these are pineapple lumps. They're almost a national treasure in New Zealand. Pineapple lumps takes a Kiwi straight back to their home base. And that's what apples do for me. They take me straight back to the orchard. And if I could, I would invite you, well, more than invite you, I would zap you in from wherever you are around the world, and I'd bring you here to the farm. It's a beautiful winter's day here today. I'd bring you to the farm, but sadly, we're having technical challenges just beaming me to you, so I can't actually conjure up the technology to bring you. So you're going to have to use your imagination. So I invite you to imagine that you have an apple, a fresh apple. Could be an Armour's apple. Notice the colour, the texture, the weight, the smell, and bite into it. Notice the taste, the tingle on your tongue, the juice. Maybe some of you in your imagination are here on the farm with me. It's harvest season, the sun's shining. Apples take me straight back home. So how about you? What connects you to that home base that you need when you need to be fearless, connected, fearless? We need more leaders like Jacinda, and leaders who understand that there's a science behind the importance of human relationships. In our brains, in our brains, hold that thought for just a moment. The science behind the connection of human relationships, we've evolved hanging out in packs, small groups kind of like this. That's what's kept us safe. And when we fear disconnection, when we fear exclusion, it triggers a threat response in our brains. When we feel disconnected, we're not as smart. We engage in less intelligent thinking. Our ability to self-regulate is reduced. We engage in more self-defeating behaviour, and we make less pro-social decisions when we feel excluded. Because this is fascinating, but what we now know from neuroscience is that in our brains, social pain, so a lack of connection, and physical pain are treated in the same way. Like, social pain is real. Like, it hurts. So knowing this, it's clear that we don't need any more weapons of mass destruction. We need compassion, collaboration, support. We need weapons of mass connection. Fearless leaders wield weapons of mass connection because connection is the foundation for fearless leadership. Now, here's something that might surprise you. 55% of global CEOs think that a lack of trust is a threat to their organisation's growth. And we've got the research that backs that up. When you work in a high trust company compared to working in a low trust company, you have 74% less stress, 50% higher productivity, 13% fewer sick days, and 76% more engagement. But that's not the best bit. The best bit, 106% more energy. Like, what would you do with double the energy at work? What would you do with double the energy at work? Fearless leadership begins with connection. but trust is the glue that holds it all together. Now, in our brains, oxytocin is a neurotransmitter. It's referred to as the love drug, but it does way more than love. It's associated with nurturing, trust, bonding, connection. Oxytocin causes us to feel more socially relaxed. It reduces anxiety, social anxiety. It increases pro-social behaviour. And here's the thing I love most about it. Like, oxytocin's like this neurochemical hug. It's your body's way of saying, it's okay, you're safe here, you belong. And there's a twist here. When we as leaders show vulnerability, it stimulates oxytocin production in other people. So us showing a little bit more of ourselves causes them to feel more trusting and more connected. So when a leader takes a risk to show more of themselves, it's not weakness. It's strategic. It's a neurochemical hug in action, and it's how trust is built. Fearless leaders focus on building trust, because a fearless focus on trust generates a bigger impact. Now, in my first week in the refugee camp, I had the opportunity to cross illegally, as it turns out, but that's another story. To cross from the relative safety of Thailand and into Myanmar. Now, across this makeshift bamboo bridge, the border here is the river. So, little bit of history just to give you some context, and I will warn you that this next image is quite distressing. But a little bit of history. In August 1988, there was popular democratic uprisings right across Myanmar, and the military government, not happy about any kind of dissent, gunned down thousands of protesters as they were marching peacefully in the streets. Now, this is a tough image to see, I know, but it's no different to so many of the images that we see daily in our news feeds, because sadly this is not just the story of Myanmar. So these protesters, mostly university students, fled the major cities and they went out into the border regions where they joined in an armed struggle for democracy. So back to the bridge. On one level, this was a simple river crossing, but on another, it was this sliding door moment that changed my life forever. Because on the other side of the decision to cross the river, I met another extraordinary leader. This is Minh Thanh. So like so many that I met, Minh Thanh was a guerrilla fighter, not by choice or by grand design, but because as students, they were forced to fight for things that many of us, take for granted: democracy and free speech. Minh Thanh was responsible for a platoon of 12 people, like motivating them to put themselves in the line every day in an armed struggle for democracy. Like, how do you do that? How do you ask people to give that much? Now, we've all heard the saying, it's a jungle out there. But trust me, when you're operating in actual jungle, all of these challenges are magnified. The work is unrelenting, physically exhausting, emotionally draining. One wrong decision and people can and do die. I asked Minh Thanh one day, what do you reckon your main leadership tool was? And he said, simple: connecting people back to purpose. All of Minh Thang's people needed to believe that the cause was worth it so that they could keep fighting, keep protecting their community. And they did. They all believed in democracy and a future without military control. And that's a pretty powerful purpose to gather around in the face of fear. So what's important enough to you that you would fight for? What's your purpose as a person, as a leader? Because fearless leaders act with purpose. Now, building trust, maintaining and building connections with people, that takes courage and bold choices. Bold choices can bring surprising benefits into your life. Because speaking of bold choices, Minh Thane, the guerrilla fighter, I so loved his leadership style that I decided to marry him. We now have 2 gorgeous daughters. We've had lots of adventures together, and we're both grateful every day for the opportunity to live with freedom and compassion. Because leadership is an action, not a title. So we come here today to be fearless. And to do that, we circle back to where we began, drawing inspiration, strength, and connection from our home base. Now, for me, that's the orchard. And for you, you know where that is. In your life, there has been a time when you were fearless, when you couldn't stand by and watch, when you were compelled to take action. Take yourself briefly back to that moment now. And in that moment, notice that your mind is clear, your body is strong, you are fearless. And come back now into the room. Remember that there have been times in your life when you are fearless. Because now is the time to embrace fearless leadership, to marshal your weapons of mass connection, to fearlessly build trust, and to fearlessly focus on purpose. Fearless leadership is a daily choice. So go fearlessly.